I'll give you one little piece that's maybe a little more practical or direct. The reason we're having trouble in Lansing right now is in large part because a lot of the House members know that the Senate is all term limited, and they're all jockeying to become the senators in their area. And I'm not even saying in a negative way. There's a lot of good people in the House, but they're afraid to take a tough vote because they're afraid it's going to catch them in the primary and then they'll never get the next step. And that's why the timing's unfortunate a little bit. But I'm kind of at the point where I'm thinking, I'm going to do what I think we need to do, and I'm going to make some mistakes. But in this case, it's not a mistake. We should be pulling the health costs, and we'd save a lot of money. And it's become a political football. And I'll just mention one other thing. I did a hearing to that effect. At the hearing, I testified. And at the end, one of the House members asked me, well, are you getting pressure on this? Because they had read the article about 2 board members visiting me. And I said, if you're talking about that, no, we're fine. We worked all that out. And they kept pressing. And finally, I said, well, I know the EA is calling my board members, and I know they have but this is a democracy, and I'm actually fine with that. And I actually am fine with that. I think the teachers union has the right to call people and say, we think someone's doing the wrong thing. I don't think I am. I think we have to win this battle right now, and otherwise we're going to go down. We have to get smart and not just keep throwing taxes on when, in fact, we can also get economies of scale. Sorry, that was way too long for that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My question is kind of connected to Selma's question as well. You're saying we need to get our students ready to compete internationally, not just nationally, because now we have to compete with people from all over the world for jobs.
Right.
How do you get parents and community members and politicians to be on board with you on this point, or how do you face their opposition, especially when it comes to the languages? Because I know people, why do you need to learn another language?
Right.
Could everyone just speak English will be good?
Right. It's interesting you mentioned that because the first biggest controversy I had was over algebra. That all kids don't need algebra. And most people don't realize that even if you're not going to be an engineer, algebra helps you think. It massages your brain, in effect. But the second biggest argument was language. We don't need language. And we have a 2-credit language requirement now to graduate. And when you go to Finland, and you realize before they're out of elementary school, they know 2 languages in addition to Finnish. So they know 3 languages by that time. So we need to do this just to be able to compete. And we're going to stick to that, and we're going to stick, there's some prediction, the local superintendent here has been nagging me a little bit in the press, that all these dropouts are going to happen because Flanagan won't back off on the requirements. Well, frankly, if dropouts happen, then you need to be accountable to your community that what didn't you do to help your kids be successful? Because all I can tell you is if they don't learn language, if they don't learn math, if they don't get to higher levels, we're done. And as you just said beautifully, I mean, this isn't about competing with Indiana anymore. You can be an engineer for Ford in India, in England, and with technology. So this is a matter of us really taking this seriously. And I would say this, 4 years ago, this is another little tip on leadership, maybe it's not, I don't know, but every interview I've ever had, I always say that the toughest thing that I would do, knowing that they may not like it. And you know what, if you don't like it, then I don't say it quite this way, but if you don't like it, then don't hire me. And in this case, it was, in effect, trust me, if you hire me, we're going to raise these standards and we're going to make sure that superintendents and principals and teachers pull it off. And it was kind of like, yeah. Well, then 2 months later, when I said, here we go, it gave me a lot of license to do it because they're honorable people and they knew that that's what they were getting. It didn't work so well a year ago. I was a finalist for president of Eastern Michigan. In the morning, Saturday morning, had the votes from what I understand. And then there was a swing vote that morning, and which was actually a blessing in disguise maybe. But what ended up happening in that case is later one of the trustees told me, well, if you hadn't said what you said the day before at that public forum, and I said, well, what was that? And he said that we probably need to consider closing one of our schools. I guess it wasn't quite that direct. What I meant was that as we change as a state with 14 public universities, everyone maybe doesn't have an ed school. Everyone doesn't maybe have a business school. We just can't afford this superstructure. So I wanted to be on record that if you hire me, we're going to be smart about maybe we aren't in all of these. But of course, it didn't work out. You know, I mean, that was one where I think it's some legitimate fear, frankly, because I'm not sure anything at Eastern should necessarily close, but I think it's something that should be studied. And this is one state that it's hard to do, as you guys know who work here, because you don't have a chancellor. Everyone's independent. But back to one other point. The polling of the Detroit News in 2005 showed that only 27% of the parents believe their kids need anything past high school. That's when I knew we have a big problem. How am I going to sell high school requirements when they don't even think they need college? And why? Because what's been the bonus, especially in Southeast Michigan, but pretty much the state for the last 50 years is what? Auto. And you could, when I first came here from New York and found out, I come out and my wife's cousin is driving a Lincoln. I got a Pinto. And he dropped out at 15, and he's got a place up north, whatever the hell up north was at the time. I had no idea. And all this stuff, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and he's a line worker, smart guy, you know, very smart guy, but the culture here was you don't need any of that, and we're still fighting it. We're still fighting it. I think there's still denial, and some people think it's going to come back. It's like, you know, have you been reading the newspaper? What's going to come back is building a new economy, having a smart workforce, sending a message to the nation that we're number one, that we're going to do it. I really believe, I'm out on a limb now as of this morning with this radio interview, but I said you're going to see a bump in the ACT scores next year, and it's going to make us a national story. I hope now. But I think because it's not rocket science. If you expose more kids to the coursework, you're more likely to have more kids do well on the ACT. I mean, again, I hope. If we don't, then I don't know what happens. So, Brad?
Mike, just one last question.
Yes.
Get off the substance of what you do and maybe the style of leadership that you bring. I know through your videos and also your presentation today the importance of humor in your presentation. I'm curious how deliberate you are with respect to humor and how important you think that is to leadership generally and some of the leeway you've been given over the years.
That's a great question. I have some criticism of these podcasts that I get from, you know, a board member or two, as an example, who think that the position should be more official and formal. But number one, that's just not me. So I couldn't do it if I wanted to do it. And I'm fine if next time around, which I guess, as I said, could be next week. But I think I'm going to be here for 5 years, honestly. I think I'm going to be here through the first term of the next governor. I would like to be. But it is deliberate on podcasts, because I'm thinking, how do you somewhat just show this isn't all about official business? And I think a little bit is when I'm trying to remember, particularly 20 years ago, thinking about a state superintendent, if it seems too formal, I don't know that you can relate to what we're asking to be done. At least that's the way I look at it. So we try this, and a little bit of it's corny, you know, I probably should have thought more, but sometimes we just do it at the last minute. So I mean, they had it all set up and said, oh, do you want to do your? I said, well, yeah, and I grabbed the bus and just, well, it is kind of dumb, I mean, in some ways, and probably there's some people who are totally offended by it. But I think it's essential, but it can only be if it's kind of natural. That's why these are a little bit maybe not appropriate, I don't know. But I do think that most of us don't want to just have serious business all day long. If you do, it's hard to function. I appreciate humor in other people. You know, it makes the time go. It helps people get less edgy. But I don't know, other than this piece where we calculate a little bit, I'm not good at calculating it, you know. But I think if you look at a lot of good leaders, they found a way. I think Ronald Reagan, John Kennedy, you know, talking in terms of presidential folks, they all found ways to show some of their natural sense of humor.